Some people think that Prohibition was a magical time in our history, but it was also a time of murder, mayhem, and mystery. Our story contains all of those elements and then some, because this is the tale of when Ferdinand Fechter crossed paths with the Blue Ribbon Gang.
My grandfather came over from Alsace-Lorraine in 1902.
At the turn of the last century, a young man named Ferdinand Fechter came to the United States looking for opportunity.
He heard about this new building that was going to go up in the Soul City dump. It was General Motors Chevrolet division on Delavan Avenue.
A new factory meant plenty of hungry and thirsty workers, and although Prohibition had sort of put a damper on the saloon business, it didn't completely stop all of them.
He built the tavern in 1919. They had a lot of food, and they did serve a lot of booze during Prohibition.
In 1929, after a long-deserved vacation, Ferdinand came back to continue running his tavern, or should we say his soda bar. Part of that job was cashing payroll checks for the nearby workers, but some circumstances aligned that day the wrong way.
Al Lutzman used to be going with my father to get the money as a security guard. That day, Al Lutzman called in sick.
After getting the money from the bank, Fechter drove back to the bar alone, a decision that cost him dearly that day.
3 people surrounded the car and demanded the money. And my grandfather went for the pistol on the seat, picked it up, and they shot him. They took the money, $8,400 or so. It was 4 guys. 1 guy drove the car, and the other 3 were the murder group. They took him to Meyer Memorial Hospital, where he died. My Uncle Eddie was 12 years old at the time. They drove off, so Eddie witnessed his father being murdered.
The crime went unsolved. The cops are clueless, but a detective named William Burns had pegged a guy named Alex Bogdanoff as the prime suspect in another murder, but he was planning to hijack an armored car to finance a counterfeiting scheme, so the feds wouldn't let Detective Burns take him in just yet. They needed more info.
So the cop crawled underneath the house to listen in on the bad guys, and it all happened right here on Fay Street.
They stood underneath the porch. They didn't have tape recorders in those days, and the policemen just stood there and listened. And they were talking about their exploits, and they were talking about the Fechter murder.
What he heard came as a surprise when Max Rabarczyk, known as Max the Goose, and Stephen Jahoviak, or Bob the Weeper, and Alec the Terrible boasted about their roles in the Fechter murder and how the Goose's wife, Blanche, diverted the cops by pulling a false police box alarm at Bailey and Kensington.
It was the Blue Ribbon Gang, and these guys were mean.
They had moved here to a house in Sloan by the time they finally arrested them in a commando-like raid.
Eddie Fechter grew up and became one of the most celebrated close-up magicians in the world and founded the legendary Forks Hotel, but he rarely spoke of the murder that he witnessed as a boy.
We never talked about that. It wasn't a big family thing, no. The 1929 was the murder. 1932, they were electrocuted at Sing Sing.
You think that justice was served?
I definitely think justice was served. My aunt was there. She witnessed it. Those were the people that did it. That's it. They were not altar boys.
On the Archive Crime Beat, I'm Eddie Dobashevitz, and these are the Queen City Chronicles.